It was Battery Day yesterday, 22nd of September. What did it achieve? Well, shares in Tesla tumbled as a result of what we heard, or perhaps maybe didn't hear, that was to the satisfaction or otherwise of investors. Tesla lost some 50 billion was in market capitalization, down from 450 billion before it went in to Battery Day. And we saw big declines as well for some of the electric vehicle battery developers, and some of those companies that actually manufacture the batteries that Tesla uses as well. But Tesla did say it was hoping to reduce the cost of the batteries in the future, and also taking down the amount of money it will cost you and I as consumers ultimately to use those batteries on a daily basis in our electric vehicles. Well, let's pick apart the day and find out just whether or not it was all worth the hype. John Meyer joins us now from SP Angel. John, welcome. Now, I know that you are, as we've spoken before, have an interest in this sector because you represent companies that mine some of these materials that come out of the ground that supply Tesla with some of his raw materials that he uses. But what's your view of what happened yesterday around this Battery Day that was so much hyped up, in my opinion, at least before the event occurred?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. Tesla stock was being sold anyway. The Nasdaq tech stocks are currently being sold off. So the market is against companies like this right now. We had a summer of these companies scaling new high levels, driven by Robinhood investors, driven by lots of institutional interest and investment, and also driven by the fact that stimulus money is coming into all elements of this. We've got lots of stimulus money pushing forwards the development of battery charging stations, EV charging stations, and so yes, we've got certain institutions are taking profits. So we saw Bailey Gifford, who've been a huge holder of Tesla for many years, selling out a chunk of that holding. That no doubt is weighing on the market because it's difficult to know, did they place that with a load of banks or were they just selling it into the market? Probably other people selling on the back of that as well. And when it comes down to Battery Day, which I see as a very important presentation by Tesla, they're now at a stage of their development where their lawyers, their corporate lawyers, are probably telling Elon Musk not to make the grandiose statements that he's made in the past, not to commit the company to too many specific deadlines and specific targets, because next time Elon says something that maybe they don't quite achieve, and let's face it, it's difficult to achieve some of the things that he's trying to do. That and the institutions are going to hold the company to account, because of course the value of their holdings is so very large, and North America is an extremely litigious place.
What do you make of some of the headlines that did come through, though? I'm looking here. Tesla want to increase the vehicle driving range by 54% on a charge, and the cost per kilowatt hour down 56%. No dates, as you said. Even these expectations are dateless. A number of stocks fell on this news. What do you make of what the effects are for these battery producers? The likes of Panasonic, of course, have been one of the major suppliers of batteries to Tesla, and Elon Musk is now wanting to bring some of that production into their own factories to do it themselves. But I guess, I mean, the bottom line is these companies are still going to provide all the raw materials. It's just that they're going to get less profit out of it. Does that mean that we should expect far lower ratings for some of these producers in the future?
No, I'm not convinced of that. I think these companies are going to lead the world. There's so much of a drive and a move to go into new energy, green technology, and of course electric vehicle development. And we saw that China has committed to the United Nations Assembly in a virtual conference speech of some sort. And this was, I think, last night or early this morning, that they're going to go carbon neutral by 2060. So for a nation the size and scale of China to go carbon neutral in the next 40 years means that there's going to be an awful lot of new development on green technology. There's going to be a huge move into electric vehicles, wind farms, probably very big on offshore wind farms, more solar farms, all those sorts of things. And Tesla is a company that's, well, it's at the forefront of the electric vehicle side of things, but it's very much at the forefront of new battery technology. So they've been talking about the new 4680 battery cell. That's named because it's 46 by 80 millimeters in size. It's got a new type of manufacturing technique to make it a bit easier to manufacture. They do talk about how difficult it is to manufacture batteries, and particularly some of the new battery technologies. They want to put silicone anodes into these batteries, but those silicone anodes haven't quite been perfected yet. So when they say full production remains 3 years away for these types of batteries, it's because they've still got work to do to get that technology right, to get the automation correct. Because once they set the design, they've got to then put the factory together to make an awful lot of these cells. It's not like having a small production line. It's a very big deal. And they also talk about the issues in sourcing materials, because not only do they need to get nickel and cobalt, and they'd love to get, they do talk about wanting not to be reliant on cobalt, but they need to get the right quality of materials into those battery cells. So it's got to be the quality control has to be particularly good for the nickel hydroxide, for the lithium. Well, it won't be lithium carbonate, but the lithium chemicals that go in there, to make sure that each battery is as good as it should be. Otherwise, as we know, these things can catch fire.
That was one of the announcements yesterday, wasn't it? And the fact that they're trying to make these electric vehicle batteries without cobalt. My understanding is that cobalt only is actually about 3%, I think, of the total production volume, or what they need within the battery. So it's mostly the other component parts you mentioned, lithium, and of course nickel is a big one as well. And we also know that, of course, copper, as you've been telling us for a couple of years now, we're going to be woefully short of copper because of the amount of copper needed in order to be able to help us charge these electric vehicles in the future. Just quickly run through the battery metals that are needed, bearing in mind the sort of the headlines that we got out of yesterday's report. Where do you see, in terms of some of the companies benefiting from the production of these metals that are needed?
Well, the key materials, and it's probably worth talking about materials rather than metals. I mean, if you examine the battery cell, there's a lot of graphite in it, and it's a specific type of spherical graphite that these guys want to use. And the better that spherical graphite is, the better the battery will be. Then, of course, there's lots of lithium in there. And the great thing about lithium is it's so light. So you can make batteries out of lots of different metals, but they're usually very heavy. And in fact, one of the issues with putting more nickel into the batteries, and more nickel makes a better battery, but it also makes it much heavier. So you're not going to use nickel and then some other heavy metal, because then the battery pack is just going to be much, much too heavy. And one of the great thing about electric vehicles is you can put the battery pack in the floor, which keeps the weight of the vehicle down, but you still don't want that battery pack to be too heavy. Otherwise you're going to have more power to drive the vehicle in the first place. So the key is lightweight but high power batteries. And what we see Elon Musk talk about is 5 times more energy, 6 times more power, and then that translates into a 16% additional range. Now, for me, 5 times more energy suggests that it ought to do more, give you more range. So I'm not quite sure what's in the mix there with that. But certainly the battery technology is improving. I think the reliability is improving. The cost of producing those battery packs is falling. Now, when they talk about the cost of a battery pack, it's not just the cost of producing the cells, but also there is shall we say, you have to combine those cells into a battery pack, and then it's all the other bits and pieces around it. So, I mean, we've talked about Oxis Energy in the past, and the cost of their battery pack doesn't increase as much with the other bits and pieces they put around the pack. But for the type of batteries that Tesla and other electric vehicle manufacturers are using, they add about I'm not sure, $20-30 to the per kilowatt hour to the cost of the pack. So that's another interesting factor to look at. So hopefully they can reduce the cost of the battery cells to about $100 a kilowatt hour, and then also reduce the cost of producing that pack to something that's towards that level as well. So the idea is to get for as Elon Musk said, to get the cost of a vehicle down to $25,000 per car, to then rival the cost of conventional cars. When he says that will rival the cost, that's just the sort of purchase cost that he's talking about. Because of course the running cost of an electric vehicle is very much less than the running cost of a gasoline or diesel vehicle right now.
Yeah, just one other interesting area, John. I think it's worth getting your thoughts on. Elon Musk has said not too long ago, actually, that he's a little bit concerned about the sourcing of some of these materials. Excuse me, and the pollution and the difficulties around some of the indigenous lands owned by people in Russia, for example, for nickel extraction. How difficult is it these days, after having through the decades extracted a lot of the easy material? How difficult is it now for these mining companies to extract material, first of all, economically, and secondly, in a way that doesn't disturb local populations, be they those that have been there for thousands of years or those that are new to the area in new developments that might have cropped up in the intervening period? Because some of the ways in which we see mining companies operate do actually some form of destruction to the local environment.
Well, we hope that we're not going to see another situation as happened with Rio Tinto, where they blow up a series of historic caves, which were built by Aboriginals. But really the big issue for most mining companies, or we say for electric vehicle manufacturers and battery cell manufacturers, is the cobalt mining, because a lot of cobalt is mined in the Congo with child and artisanal labor. And of course, those families, there isn't the same educational system in the DRC as there is in the West. The kids get involved with the families, and they're not digging by hand, but they're digging with shovels and spades and stuff like that. It's a dangerous and difficult business, and people get killed, and the health and safety is virtually non-existent. And also, the Chinese mining companies have got control of quite a lot of that cobalt supply these days. So it's a risk for Elon Musk. Firstly, it's a risk because it does seem to involve child labor, although I haven't seen it recently myself. And it is a risk because the Chinese control so much of it. And we certainly see the Chinese are trying to control more and more lithium supply. For example, Sino Hydro, which is part of Power China, it has got its foot on the new lithium project at Cobalt Minerals, and we keep seeing this around the world, where Chinese companies come in and try and ensure that they're in pole position for getting hold of the raw materials that are coming out of these mining companies, and we work with quite a few of these smaller junior companies that are looking to produce these metals going forwards in future years. And quite often we see the Chinese coming in, either buying shares quietly or coming in and taking large placements and developing, almost developing the companies themselves.
Just one final question to wrap it up. Do you think this time next year we'll be looking ahead for more revelations out of Battery Day, 22nd of September next year, or do you think it's an event that perhaps maybe Tesla won't want to repeat?
No, I hope they do carry on with this Battery Day event. I'm sorry that there are always corporate lawyers that are going to get involved and suggest that things are non-specific, and that Elon Musk is probably gagged with the next best thing to gaffer tape. But no, it's great because it gives people targets to work towards. It tells everyone where the company's going. For me, it's fantastic, and I wish more companies would do this. I mean, if you went to Japan, if you talk to Panasonic, Hitachi, all these great companies that are brilliant at what they do, they don't give anything like the information out about what they're doing. They keep it secret. When was the last time you heard anything like this coming out of Sony or LG Group or Samsung? They just don't really do it. So for me, this is a world-leading event. It shows that Elon Musk is very much out there driving the technology, making things move at a pace. And let's face it, we wouldn't have half the electric vehicles in the world right now if it wasn't for Elon Musk pushing things ahead. So I'm sorry the corporate lawyers are holding him back, and I'm sorry that that there is the potential for people like Elon to get sued if they make grandiose statements. But for me, this is what tells us where the world is going, and this is actually driving everyone else to try and keep up with Tesla.
Yeah. Okay. Great, John. Thanks indeed for joining us. A quick review of Battery Day, 22nd of September, 2020. That was John Meyer from SP Angel. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGTV and subscribe to our YouTube channel.